Hello, my name's Steve Wagner. I've got a special guest here, Mike Beernink. He's been with our company, well, at least 10 years. And I know he's a Phoenix Award winner. He won that 7, 8 years ago, I think. Always been in the top 1% of our company, probably is our top producing pretty much single agent. He has some people on the team, but in my mind, it's more of a mentoring capacity. I think they really, I hope it's not said in the wrong context, probably slow you down more than add to your GCI and everything. You do a lot of training with our company, but I'd like everybody to meet Mike Beernink. How you doing?
Hey, nice to see everybody.
So we're talking about a topic that I think you're the expert on. And so I thought I'd bring you on and get your thoughts on a lot of things. And this is about growing your business. But you see the SOI.
Yes.
Sphere of influence. And so we're just going to have a real casual discussion. We're going to go through PowerPoint, and I'm interested to see what Mike has to say. So let's see if we can get this going here. Well, there we go. So that's an interesting thing. Every year it's somewhere we'll have some slides. I'm gonna go over some stats first, Mike, and get your feedback. But over 65% of an agent's business is from this topic. So sphere of influence.
Absolutely. Mine's a little higher than that. I know some of the other agents that I work with that particularly that participate in the postcard program, theirs is a little higher than that too. There's so many advantages to having a sphere of influence. I know we'll get into that later, but I think that's absolutely accurate.
So yeah, I think the longer you're in the business, but I think for new agents it should be at least 50%. And then by design, this is where agents have to be a little patient up front, the brand new agents, because maybe some people are slow to use them in the beginning. Maybe we should define. What we define. Tell me when you define sphere of influence. What are you thinking of with sphere of influence?
I think there's really two different types of sphere of influence. Okay, there's people that you know already, and there's people that you will get to know that will join your sphere of influence. And I think there's two ways to cultivate both of those groups of people. I think that with new agents, they have to look at the people they don't know as well. And when you say patience, the most challenging thing for new people is I think by far is the dream the bubble getting burst once they get into this business, that it's not easy money. It's not just, you don't just get your real estate license and boom, you're rich. It's hard work. So
I'm going to go ahead and define sphere of influence. You're right. There's two of them, but technically, so you should have two lists. When it really becomes sphere of influence, it's people that you know or have met. I hate to bring up Gary Keller because everybody, I don't think he's the smartest guy ever lived, but I do think I have read his books. There's some things that stuck out. To be simple, it's you've either met them or have never met them, and you can meet them on a phone conversation, you can meet them face to face, but you've had some kind of a discussion, a dialogue with one another. Once there becomes dialogue, then it crosses a threshold into sphere of influence. But when we start sphere of influence, as you know, it's your friends and your family.
That's right. And when I started in this business, I was a school teacher before I got into real estate. And what I did is I targeted everybody in the school system of where I taught school. That would include the custodial staff, the support staff, the teachers, the principals, the former students, their parents. Not so much the former students, but now they're becoming clients. But I really built the sphere of influence, and that was, my father was the one who suggested that. It was the best, great advice, unbelievable. And then the second thing was just prospecting and going out and talking to everybody and adding them to my sphere of influence, and truly following up with people once every 3 months by phone call. Back then, I wasn't sending stuff to everybody, and we didn't have fancy email campaigns.
So we've got, when we talk sphere of influence,
mhm.
we have a target of who we want to become sphere of influence. And then we have people that are sphere of influence. So there's two piles. Again, in my mind, you have to have actually had some kind of interaction with someone to be your sphere of influence. They're kind of like a leads, or you could call them leads, but they're targets, lead targets. And then there are, people that have actually, so if you follow this process, this is the NAR average is 65%, but Mike Beernink is saying that it goes higher than that. And I agree with him on most people. If you're doing a good job in real estate and you're following the plan we're about to articulate, it could be 100%, or darn close to 100%.
Easiest business you can get. You're not competing. And the best thing about it is there's so many people with real estate licenses now that you're not competing. When it's your sphere of influence, you're not competing with everybody going after the same target like it is with for sale by owners, expireds, and that sort of thing.
So let's look at the right-hand column. Now, these stats I may have the same stats on different slides, and if they're a little different, it's because they're taken from different years. This is directly screenshotted from the 2018 NAR profile, and they spend millions of dollars doing this research. They do it every single year. But in 2018, let's see, 63% of sellers found their agent through a referral friend or had worked with them. So that's 63%, either 65% or 63%. Next one, this is an interesting one, Mike. Tell me what you think when you hear this. 75% of recent sellers contacted only one agent before finding the right agent. So in other words, 75% go with the first person they talk to.
Well, that says a lot for what the general perception of real estate agents is in the public. I think it probably is accurate. I think the majority of real estate agents are decent or good, and if not great. So that would make sense. There's probably 75%, and out of that 75%, Steve, those are full-time agents. I don't think people are going to give their business or their house, their most valuable asset, to somebody who is not fully engaged in this business.
Let me tell you what that stat means to me, Mike, and what we're talking about in this thing. 75% of sellers only talk to one agent before decide. That means that you've got to be the first person that they talk to. To me, that's what that means, is that, and that's what we're talking about here, is getting lists of people and keeping up with them. Because
who was the guy that came to our awards banquet last year that Stan invited? And he said, speed the lead. Remember that speaker we had?
Michael Hellickson, I believe it was. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is it can't be any simpler than those two stats right there. 63 to 65% are on average, but Mike Beernink says it should go up higher than there. That's just averages. So we know that the first one, let's talk about the 63 to 65. Well, everything else, every other lead gen tech, we could list 100 other lead gen techniques. That's all about 35% of the pie. SOI is 65% of the pie, and from NAR stats, and you're saying you get probably 80% maybe of your business through sphere of influence. So so we're trying to lay a foundation. You got to do the reason why you're going to do what we say you're going to do. You're going to take it seriously. Is that's it. You can study all the other, that may be 35. The second thing is that all you got to do is start getting a big list of people and keeping up with them. 75% of them are going to go with the very first person they talk to, be the first person they talk to.
Well, I could give you numerous examples of people that I followed up with, like the lady who worked at Publix in Duluth. And to make a long story short, I got her name and number. I followed up with her, and I sent her stuff every quarter. And I was sending her a calendar in the holidays. And 17 years later, she called me up, and I sold her house.
Yeah.
And
Seven.
then then I got the one across the street. I listed his house, and he referred me to somebody else. I had 3 sales. All it was just me keeping up with somebody. It did not cost me a fortune to do that.
The next stat here we're looking at, the typical seller, it's not just about their business. This is what everybody's got to remember. It's not just about their business. It's about this. The typical seller has recommended their agent once. 32% of sellers recommend their agent 3 or 4 times since selling their home.
Listen, I have some people out there. I know you're not allowed to pay an unlicensed person any kind of fee, but I mean, I got people out there that are touting me, and that's a great position to be in. And when you develop relationships with people like we should be in this business, it's a relationship driven business. That's what happens.
So 1/3 of the sellers, okay, refer at least 3 or more since selling their home. 1/3. So what does that mean? To get that, you have to.
Well, in order to get referrals like that, guys, you got to give excellent service, and I'm extremely systematic. Billy Rivas is right across the hall from me. He knows my routine because he's been over there for almost 2 years. And my routine is I call all my listings on Monday. On Wednesday, I make sure I get any follow-up stragglers that haven't given follow-up. And on Friday, I send a marketing report. It is consistent every single week. And I believe that by doing that, people know that you care about them. They know that you're doing the job. And that's what I think makes you stand out.
So I think there's 3 things that you know, again, these are averages. 1/3, the typical one, more than half are going to refer 1, but a third are going to refer at least 3 or more. But here's the thing: these are averages. What if we took a strategy that was superior? So, like you said, it starts with service. Number 1. Number 2 is follow up. Number 3, ask for the business. I mean, there is one great trainer. That's his whole thing, by referral only. That they have a system that they're always reminding their sphere of influence that this is it for me. This is the lifeblood of my business. This is how I get all my business, is by doing excellent work and then doing such a great job for my sellers that you feel compelled to refer your people to me. And I always tell you, I'm going to do the same great work for the people who refer as I did you. But it's, again, I'm glad you said that. Excellent service starts off. But the last one is follow-up is the middle. Last one, you got to ask for it repeatedly.
Right. I think the way any business, look at the way virtual properties has grown, that's word of mouth. That's from the agents that are very happy here. It's the same way in real estate. If your clients are happy, I have one client that's probably referred me 15 people. I mean, that's amazing. I only got him a couple of years ago.
That's what we refer to, by the way, as a power advocate. That's going to be 1 to 2% of all your SOI names.
I mean, and you got to believe that I'm going to take good care of them. And so and also I think another thing is real estate agents that are level-headed and that don't get overly excited and don't yell at and argue with their clients, that stay calm and cool. Yeah. I think that they go a lot further in terms of getting referrals. And I think, and believe it or not, even though other people are upset, if you stay cool about things, they appreciate it and you'll get more things closed.
We're going to come back to that, that stat, which I think is amazing. 1/3, 3 or more. And we're going to talk more about, what you do to make that happen. Let's go to that next stat there. 85% said they would definitely, or probably recommend their agent for services. And yet, less than 25% and every year actually do. So it gets back to exactly what you're saying again, the 3-step plan: excellent service, follow up, ask them for their business.
Steve, it's very simple, okay? So since you and I sat down and talked about postcards, I create a very customized postcard, and it doesn't take me but a minute. And I send it to all my past clients, and I do it every month. That way I'm in front of them and over and over and over. I had one client that in 2004, I sold them a house. They called me back in 2017. I sold that house. They bought another house through me. It was because, and he said, you know, Mike, you did everything you're supposed to do. You sent me something every month. You kept in touch with me. And that's what that's what agents don't do. The biggest failure in this business is people not following up in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't take, it's not rocket science. You don't have to be, just get your name in front of them over and over so they don't forget you.
You just said it, Mike. The NAR, I don't have it on a slide here, number one complaint amongst agents is not keeping in touch. That's during the process or afterwards. They feel like if you close on them, even you keep up then, but they don't ever call them again. In their mind, you don't care about them. You were just there to make the sale, and now you're gone. And us agents, we just get busy typically, and we assume they're going to call us back. But less than 25% are calling us back when 85% of the sellers are at that time say, "Oh, I'm definitely going to use that, my agent again." But only 25. So that keeps up. That's all this stats set up. What we're doing. There it is again. Would use the agent. This is probably a different year. 23% actually do use the agent. 84% they would either definitely or probably use their agent. That means that when they say probably, if you keep up with them over time, you're their man or woman. But
here's something else to think about. Okay, when someone is in your sphere of influence and they know you, okay, and nobody out there knows that they're thinking about selling, they're going to call you. So when you're competing against every other agent for sale by owners and expireds and that sort of thing, who has the leverage? The homeowner, right? Because there's so many agents. The supply and demand is cockeyed. Whereas in this, it's much more level. These people will respect you more. They'll pay you better. They'll treat you better. And they have a way of knowing you, so they know what to expect. You don't have to go through all that that beginning dance, waltz, whatever you want to call it, where you got to get them kind of honed in. You don't have to do that with these people. So
look at that exhibit. Look at that exhibit and the stats. Okay, so number one, they're 30. Where the big 23% is there. Number one's referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative referred by somebody. And number two, used previously. So in this one, this is about 63, 61% there. But also, you could add 5% more to that just by personal contact by agent, telephone, email. That's sphere of influence right there, isn't it? So now we're
if I were parachuted anywhere in the country, okay, my main goal would be I would take 6 months to build my CRM, and I would get at least 500 to 1,000 people I went out and met with, and I would work out of that CRM for the rest of my career. That would become my sphere of influence. And I think that's the answer when you have a very competitive industry like this. The problem with agents, though, is when they come into this business, it takes time to build that. So you're not going to make money right away. It takes a little time, but once you got that built, it's going to sustain you forever.
So it's amazing that we have all these ways to get business and everything, but it's so clear that almost 3/4 of it comes from the sphere of influence that we're talking about. I'm looking at all the other ways.
That's
right. And these are stats straight from the NAR. Okay, so we've already been through that. So where business comes from. So number one is referrals through the SOI. That's the thing. It's the number one source of business is referrals. Period. That's stats over and over again.
That's right.
38% of sellers who use real estate found their agent. I'm looking at the yellow at the bottom down there. A referral through friends, family, sphere of influence. 39%. 24%, the second biggest source, comes from past clients. So there's and then acquaintances. So that's all SOI. It's over 65% right there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Then internet. So again, what's amazing here is Mike and I have taught classes together on 65 ways to get business. But I'm just saying, I'm just kind of dumbfounded here that we're dealing with 35%. Everything else we talk about beyond 1, 2, or 3, it's all, you know, we get internet leads. Yeah, I'm big on internet leads. That's number 4 now. Has moved up to number.
But this is the secret sauce right here.
This is not the secret sauce most people want.
I know. But here's the thing is, when you're with a company like Virtual Properties, I'm going to say something I don't mean, I'm going to tout the company a little bit here. And you have 2 of the best CRMs known in the industry, in Commissions Inc. and KV Core. Okay, and they're next to nothing. One's free, the other one is really inexpensive, and you can build a sphere of influence and put people in there and start building a whole campaigns around it, and it doesn't cost you anything. The only thing that's getting in the way of people doing that is right here, and it's their own mind. And the people say, well, I don't have time. Well, if you have a lot of transactions going on, you need to block your time a little better. Make sure that you have time to build your sphere of influence. Make sure you have time to get more people in your database. Because if you do it for 6 months consistently, I maintain that you may not have to prospect ever again. Just out of that database is the only place you're going to be prospecting.
No doubt. So with the final 35%, internet is about 9%. Miscellaneous prospecting techniques. That's for sale by owners, expireds, and all this other things that we teach. Again, all these 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's all 35% right there. And you've even said it shouldn't be. Should be less than 35% if you're doing SOI. If you're doing SOI, then nobody should ever be in number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
And frankly, you're going to get, if you're working with your sphere of influence, here's the things: you get paid better typically.
Yep.
You're treated with more respect.
Yep.
You go out to for sale by owners, and they've got 30 people begging for the listing. What does that do to the commission? That doesn't drive it up.
That's a great point. A lot of people don't think about that.
Yeah. So there are so many reasons to build I think you can. What I've done is built a sphere of influence. Yeah. It's not like I knew everybody in the world coming in, but if you know 100 people, that's a great start. And then you got to start going out and meeting people, going to, if you go at Subway, you're getting a sandwich in line, you meet with people. Like I was at Walgreens in 2001, I met Janet Creel, from Neymar, and she became my sphere of influence. She ended up listing her house with me, and she knew everybody, but she, all these people, but she knew me because I put her in my sphere of influence.
Right.
So, and I followed up with her. So that I have
that's a great
stories like that. That is the secret.
That's a great feather in your cap. So number 6, signage and other marketing. Number 7, open house, which we'll do a whole session on open houses down the road. We won't get into that now, but that's number 7. Strategic alliance is number 8. That's it, folks. We could do, he and I could break this thing down and do 100 different ways, but 65% on those first 3. So the other thing is that we're going to get some stats here. The national average is 11.2% of everybody moves a year.
I love this. I love this number because if you take 6 months and you put, let's say you put 5 people a day, 5 days a week in your sphere of influence, you'll end up with 600 people in 6 months, right? Yep. And if 10% of those people move, I'm talking about your year starts after you build that 6-month database.
Right.
Then in the next year, right, 10% move, that's 60 people. 30%, you go and interview with 30 of them, okay? You get business from 20 of them, they close. You close 20 of them. That's not a very high number. I'm being very conservative here. If the average commission is $6,000, you just made 120 grand.
I love that. I love that. You just for other people. Numbers. Yeah, they are. I mean, technically, if you did 600, like you said, and you get 60, but that's not that ain't gonna happen that way. Here's other stats, Mike. Since I got in the business, the move rate's almost cut in half, because I got in 89, and now this stops at 2018, but it's dropped to 10%. So that's maybe a little bit of, but nevertheless, this pretty much sets the strategy as you've just outlined. Get as many in there and let the move rate. You just got to be the one calling them at least 3 or 4 times a year, or connecting with them.
I would say if you started today, okay, today is November 4th, and you've spent 6 months until, what would that be, May 4th? Was it May 4th? Okay.
Perfect timing.
May 4th, and then you stop, okay, and you build that CRM. I would say, but from May 4th, 2020 to May 4th, 2021, you could make at least $100,000 on that CRM if you worked it right and you followed up, and because those people are gonna get to know you. Honestly, I believe that more than anything.
This is a good stat, Mike, because it shows the rate, but it shows that this is the thing that most people are kind of double dippers. If you look at that blue line, then there's red. The blue is that the people move within the same county, but the red is where they move in a different county, same state. Now, we're familiar with a lot of people moving they usually move a little bit further out, because they get more money as they move out, and they feel like that area, they've gotten used to this area, now they can move in a little more rural area. But more than 3/4, probably 80% are staying right in the area.
So 20% are not, right? Is that
about
right?
What, exactly.
So out of that 20%, how many people are getting referral fees?
Good point.
Because that's a lot of dollars. The best money that you can make is unexpected money.
Yeah.
Where you get that where you send out a referral. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen. That happened to me last week. I got a nice referral fee. I didn't expect it. It was awesome.
Cool. Then also to understand, we got 10% move rate. So people just need to understand that. I don't know how they calculate the, 1 through 9 and the 10 through 17, but these are the move rates of the 18 to 20, between 18 and 34, it's about 20%. And then it drops down between 35 and 44, about they hit almost the exact national average. And then as you get to our age, Mike,
as you get older, you move slower.
You move a lot less. So you got to know your market, and be able to strategize around that. I think if you got, if it was 10% in your area, in your demographics, if you got 5%, you'd be doing good. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and when you say geographic target marketing, and I know you've talked about that, that means that you just stay in a small area. So if you're going out and building this sphere of influence or whatever you're doing, you can do it by farming, or you can do it by only going to and talking to people at the grocery store or whatever that are in that geographic area.
Well, look at this right here. I thought this slide, I just went back to a slide. As you can see, about 80% either move in the same county or to a different county, same state, which probably means right around that area. So Facebook advertising around like a pin drop, they allow you to put a pin drop and do likely buyer, likely sellers, and you can pinpoint that. I always feel like this proves that is excellent marketing, because you're hitting about 80%. We probably need to show sellers this when we're doing that pin drop marketing in a 30-mile circular radius, was generally what we do. Then we're getting at least 80% of the market there. So
it's great, because you're also build the CRM, And you know, the CRM is what is going to drive your sphere of influence. That's what's going to, that is the most important tool you can have. Is some way to follow up, some way to manage your prospects.
So I was just, those stats were meant to be just kind of like to get the ball rolling a little bit. You know, I call this the sphere of influence is step one in the whole process. It's step one is sphere of influence. So these are what I call the 5 for a newbie agent. You know, I'll let you take it away there, Mike, because I think this is what I've heard you say before.
If I were a new agent anywhere in the country, you know, here's what's exciting. Virtual Properties just went live in South Carolina, right?
Right.
Okay. So if, let's say that Virtual Properties, I don't know, move to a certain southern state a little south of here, it's a peninsula. I'm not saying any names.
We're working on
it. And one of us wanted to move there, right? Someone wanted to move there. I literally believe that you could take and you could build a sphere of influence. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you do that, if someone did that, and within 2 years, within a year and a half, they could be making 6 figures. I really, 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 really believe that. You could launch, and you're not competing with everybody else, because you're only going after those people. The biggest challenge you have is going out and meeting people and adding them to your sphere. So that's, but when you say 5 fundamental realtor training and tasks, your SOI initiative, that's what we're talking about here, right?
Number 1, yeah.
Okay. Learn your contract. Absolutely. You need to know it back and forth. When you sit down with somebody, you should be able to sing a Christmas carol or a holiday carol, if you're, you know, whatever it is, while you're writing, or happy birthday to, you should be able to do that while you're writing a contract. It should be that easy.
Now, you and I both are big, you know, forget the buyer agents, go get your sellers. We were talking about that before we started this thing.
That's
but
what I think. Yeah.
To a newbie agent, a brand new agent, I do think they should cut their teeth on a few buyer agents.
Sure, and I think, you know, but I think if you for a new agent, the most important thing is that you get somebody that's going to be, that maybe helps you a little bit through your first few. It's like the mentoring program we have here, to when you start listing, but don't be afraid of it. Okay, just learn. Look at it as learning tools and building. But you're right. Buyer agency is very important. When you say basic technology, the MLS systems, you have to know how to use MLS and know how to use contracts, know how to open a lockbox, and you can function. And creating a market analysis. I mean, if you can do that, you can list. If you know the paperwork, you know how to do a market analysis, you theoretically can list. Obviously, you need to know what the how are we going to market our home? These are the 5 main steps that I use. You know, you gotta have something in place for some sort of presentation. But I agree with all those things very much.
That's basically it. Number 1, I think, is, you know, you think contract, but setting up that database of CRM, we're probably going to talk more about that in a second. Understanding what we're doing, what we mean by SOI, but then, you know, kind of learning those. If you got those 5, you're pretty good to go.
I agree. There we go.
What does that say at the bottom? I can't read that at the bottom.
Look for 101 classes pertaining to the above topics. That's great.
So on VPR Central, we'll have some more of that stuff, without a doubt.
You can't get enough of that.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a big thing to me, man, is that CRM. God, I don't know why anybody who's full-time in this business would not use a CRM. I just don't understand it.
Daily. I mean, it's like religiously. Yeah, I mean,
it is what you should be driving your business, period. End of story. This is what I have to do every day. This is who I need to call every day. Boom, 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 boom. That's it.
So you got your CRM. You got to be adding adding names at CRM.
And following up with them, like you had said. Time blocking is huge, man, because some people, here's a problem with real estate agents. They get some business, right? Then they focus all their efforts on their two buyers. One of the buyers falls out and decides to wait for 6 months. The other one, they close. And then after they close, what happens? Well, they've neglected the rest of their business, and you can't do that. So you got to block your time. One of the secrets that's helped me is by finding out from a buyer what day on the weekend or what times on the weekend they can be what are the best times to look, and what evening during the week. And then I block those 2 times for them. I let them know that that's your time. You know, I'm not going to be showing homes to anybody else. That's going to be just for you. And that makes them feel good. And also it allows you to control your time instead of having somebody call you every 15 minutes all day long, which drives me crazy.
So other time blocking is just saying, I'm going to start, I'm adding names, but remember, we've got to keep up with them, keep in touch. Yeah. We've got to turn unknowns or unmets into mets. And so the only way we're going to work this process is by having time blocking, rituals for calling. Yep.
This is time blocking right here. That's the whole kit and caboodle.
Well, if anybody I know, and if anybody I know that really utilizes prospecting time blocking sessions, it's you, and you are the one of anybody that doesn't move your time blocking.
I don't, but you have to be a little flexible because of closings. You
have a lot of closings. So.
Right. End of the month, last week of the month, you have to make. I always that's when most of your closings are going to happen. Why? Because of the interest payment, okay, for the buyer, because they don't have to pay that money. They pay less money the closer to the end of the month that they close, and you know what I'm talking about. So That's why your last week of the month is, I don't like to prospect that week. So the way I like to set up everything is for the last week to be devoted to closings. I don't even go on. I try not to go on too many appointments the last week. I just try to devote all that to closings. The other weeks are. So you got to plan your months too. So
well, let me ask you this question. When have you found to be the best time? I know it's in the evenings or in the morning. Do you have a preference, mornings or evening? When's the best time to make these contacts with people?
Saturday morning. Ask me why.
Why?
There's 3 reasons, okay? Number 1, they're less stressed.
Yep.
Okay? People are a little calm. Now, if you call them at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, they might be a little stressed. But I would say calling between 9:30 and 11:30 Saturday morning is probably the number 1 best time. The second thing, the second reason is you're not interrupting their evening. They don't have a full day that they've just gone through, and they just want to rest, and they want to tune out and shut down. Yeah. That's the way people are after work.
That's Saturday, good advice.
They get a good night's sleep. They wake up. They feel pretty good. Okay, so I guess that's 2 reasons. I would say that's the best time. Okay, the other time that we learned on going to Sync Commissions Inc. was they said in the morning during the drive times for people when they're driving, and in the afternoon during drive times. Why? Because most people have cell phones. Number 1, and number 2, most people will have a second to talk to you when they're driving because they're in rush hour traffic. So that was another time. I thought that was interesting, and it makes perfect sense. So if you have to say in the morning, I would say anywhere between 8 and 10, and in the afternoon between 4 and 6. That's what they said, Steve, right?
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, because we went to that seminar.
So when it says time blocking rituals, it almost means go ahead, it doesn't always, but for the whole year, 2020 is coming up, just put it in there, the days you're going to do it, that Saturday morning, kind of, and then a couple other times, maybe one morning and one evening, or if not more than that, and a week where you're going to be making prospecting calls, not just not calls like you've got them under contract. Don't use that like
That doesn't, no, that's a different time block. See, priority wise, I think your number one priority has to be closings in this business. Because you know, you without closings, you don't earn an income, number one. Number two, if you screw up a closing, you get in trouble. The second thing would be contracts. And for the same two reasons, you got to have contracts to earn a living. And if you mess one up, you're going to get in trouble. My number three priority is listings. And then after that, it's buyers. Okay. So I think you got to work out of priorities, and you have to, whenever you're building your schedule or building your routine, you think of those priorities and you think of what's the most efficient way that I can handle and tackle those priorities every single day.
So moving from time block, I think we've discussed that. If you don't schedule in there in ink, it generally doesn't happen. We think of excuses not to do it. But moving to the scripts. Now you're calling sphere of influence. Do you have a certain script? Just this is sphere of influence. I know you got scripts for sale by owner, expireds, and all these other ones, but you're calling it, you say, look, I'm just going to keep in touch. What is your script for calling a sphere of influence person that you haven't talked to in 3 or 4 months?
Man, there's a lot of different scripts, but I think the best one is to just call them up and say, hey, this is Mike with Virtual Properties. How are you doing? You know, and just get into a little conversation with them, and then just say, hey, I'm just wanted to check in with you, see how you were, see if you had any questions about the real estate market. So don't make it about trying to sell them. Okay, what you're trying to do, and if they say, well, now, you know, as it come to think of it, we've talked a little bit, and you know, we kind of want to know what the pricing on our house would be right now. Okay, so that it can lead to those sorts of things. If you come into somebody and you're too aggressive in their face, you say, I used to like the who do you know who might be interested in buying or selling a home now or in the near future. I mean, is there anybody on your softball team? That's a good script, okay? But I'm not as crazy about that, because I think it makes people look at you and it sounds salesy to me. And I try to not sound salesy. That's what I try not to do. And I think it works better if you don't sound salesy. And that's just my opinion.
Okay. So we really said, well, you can get scripts. There's all kinds of stuff on the internet, and everybody thinks that they know the perfect way. There is no perfect way.
My script, look, it's part of me, because that who do you know who is a great script and it's proven, but I've never been 100% comfortable using it. So I got to find something that I'm comfortable with, that I will make calls and I feel okay doing it. You know, there's scripts that I have to tweak because I think they sound a little bit too abrasive and aggressive. There's one trainer in particular that can be abrasive. I won't say any names, but you have to kind of tweak things, because if you're not really being genuine, I think people can hear it in your voice, and they can kind of, they know over the phone that you're not being who you really are. That's what I think.
In my mind, you call up and you have a conversation. You do want to, get off topic, talk about personal, family, this and that.
Right.
And say, look, I'm just calling for a couple reasons. Number one, just want to see if there's anything I can do for you, or any questions you might have. Always want you to kind of look at me as your source for any questions or concerns or this and that. I'm here. And then, and by the way, just don't ever want you to forget that I do rely on referrals. And by the way, you're not going to be buying or selling anytime in the near future, are you, Mike?
No, I'm really not thinking about it.
Okay. Yeah. So if you had to guess, when do you think you'd be buying or selling?
Well, Steve, we'd call you if we were. But if I had to guess, I would say that we're probably going to be looking in about 5 to 7 years at getting something like a little condo on the lake as a second property.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking you is I do have we get the new listings, and we even get some listings that are not on the market. Nobody knows about them. And I don't know if you're enjoying this. I always like to, a lot of my clients want me to send them like once a week, some once a month, some once a quarter, some twice a year, some once a year. So I don't want to be, I don't want you to be saying, hey, Steve, you're spamming me or anything like that. Do you like the pictures of the houses and you can see the prices, virtual tours?
Steve, I know that you know me, and there's nobody else I'd want to work with. Okay. At the same time, I really only want to look at properties that are on Lake Lanier. And I want to keep, as long as the price range is under 700,000.
Okay,
and
so not trying to do too much of a real actual role play. What I'm trying to do is find out, let them, be respectful to them. It's a tool,
Right.
because now you're finding out what they're looking for. You want to send them what they want to see, so you have a little bit of a conversation with them, because with Sync and KV Core and HomeSnap and several of the apps we have, you can start sending them on a regular. But you want to know, is once a month too much? Would you prefer once a quarter, twice a year?
You want to be a little specific. So this example, are you okay with just being on the lake, or do you want to be on deep water, or do you want to have a dock? So there's some different things that you want to find out. So you want to be a little bit specific, so they don't feel like you're spamming them. So of the
time, and the other thing to remember is the technology of the Sync and KV Core. The consumer can actually go in there and create an account and modify what it is. So if there's something, you came into a little bit of money, or maybe you went the other way, you and your wife sat down and said, but I want you to stay informed of the market. So when that time does come, you've been following it the whole way. And I'm going to be sending you. So one of the interesting things about that thing is that any of these platforms will show if they really start looking a lot. It'll give you a heads up a little bit, because if you have them on your sphere of influence and you can do what I'm talking about, get this drip pen, they may not even look at it for months, or maybe just look at it a little bit, but all of a sudden you see a big spike in activity. It's time to
15 times a day or something.
It's time to place a call. You in your mind know, okay, there might be, but you called, hey, Mike, something you popped in my head, and I don't know, I just felt like something said to give you a call. So I just wanted to see, are things okay there? Did you have any questions or anything like that? Well, super, awesome. You haven't changed your time frame, moved up your time frame from moving, have you? It does take good bedside manner. A lot of things you can get away with things. If one person can't get away with it, they sound salesman. You've got to practice your dialogue where you don't sound salesman. And then I really do think that you should be sincere in talking to them and really trying to help them out.
Well, and a lot of mine is just what I rely on is just the contacts. So for example, the reason that I send the postcards is so I don't have to call them as much. Because I'm with past clients. I want to keep myself in front of them, but I don't want to bother them. I don't want to be a bother to them. So I would say, if you're going to call, for me, this is just for me, calling up past clients might be a twice a year thing.
That's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
And not like every quarter, every month. Certainly not every month. You're gonna really put them off.
But you got to do that twice a year.
Well, and if you don't do it twice a year, as long as you're sending them something every month, that's important too. But I think if you want your best return, you combine those two and you call them twice a year, and you keep it kind of a real soft sell. Really, not a hard sell, not any kind of let them tell you what's going on. Do twice as much listening as talking.
Right.
And really ask them questions, and really let them do the talking. Because they're the ones who will tell. If you listen to them, you will find out.
You got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that should
Right.
tell you what you're doing.
That's right. That's
So
right.
through the whole process that we got branding campaign, this is the foundations of how you do this. It is a CRM. You need to be adding people in there. You need to be communicating. That's what the time blocking says, that you actually have to call them, as Mike said, twice a year. I like that number. I mean, you could get, if you did once a year, a lot of people, most people just do that, and some people don't even do that. But you might run that risk of someone getting in there and out communicating you at the right moments. Use scripts. In other words, just use dialogues. The dialogues are simple. You break ice with them, be sincere, and then kind of say, oh, by the way, are you going to be, you haven't changed your time. If you have a CRM, you got to pick up from the last conversation a little bit, and even stuff
what you say is going to be different based on every situation. And if it's a past client, you can reference some things with the house they bought. How are things going with the new dock? Or how are things with you? Did you get to finish that basement? Those type of things. And how's that going? And really get them talking about different things. And that's I think that's going to be a lot less salesy.
For volume. I mean, what you ultimately, this SOI thing is to have 500, if not 1,000 friends, that they think of you as a friend, you think of them as a friend. And so in order to do this, you've got to put notes in the CRM, their dog's name, their kid's name, their kids plays baseball.
That's right.
Johnny hit a home run last time I talked to you. How's that going? Or he was in the hospital.
I've done that before. Exactly that. Or your dog broke its leg. I mean, how's your dog doing? It's just different. You're just connecting with them on a human level. They're just people. It's not, you got to get, here's the thing. If you remember and take care of the person, okay, and you take care of the client, the money will always follow.
Exactly.
I really believe that. You take care of you put the people first. You don't put the commission first. Okay. If you put money ahead of people, that's a recipe for failure. And that's what, frankly, a lot of agents that have failed have done that.
So always, no doubt about the good service, and then be sincere when you talk to them. But there is a saying in sales: if you don't ask, a lot of times you don't get. So finding a way of asking without sounding like a salesperson. This is practicing dialogue. The final thing we have on there is, we're going a little slow on these things. The branding campaigns is just like what you're doing with the postcards. There's a million ways to brand, but that's why you're not talking to them. You're keeping them top of mind, and you're branding your face, your name, logos, etc.
That's exactly right.
If you kind of work on those things, you'll probably be successful with the SOI campaign. So the definition, I remember there's a saying, Mike, used to be, it doesn't matter what you know, it's who you know. And then we changed it. It doesn't matter who you know, it's who knows you. That's
true. But that's a good point.
And then there's the third thing. It doesn't matter who knows you, it's how they know you.
Right.
That's what you were basically saying.
Right. I mean, you want everybody to know you. That's why I like the postcard so much, because it allows people to know you're in real estate, and they see you, and you're dripping on them.
Now you have that stack behind you right now. Can you pull out that stack? I was in Mike's office the other day, and then he's told me point blank, and it was really powerful when he said, he goes, "There's one thing I won't stop doing." Yep. But you got it's 2 inches thick, the cards that you sent.
Yeah, these are attention getters. And where it says on the front, happy clients, has pictures of them. I have Ruby Javad do this for me. It's worth every penny, and she does a spectacular job. And basically all I do is I have a message on the front, and it's not, you don't have to know everything. I mean, it's just some message. Welcome to the selling season. This one says, what is happening in the marketplace? Interest rates have actually gone down. Prices are still slowly rising. The economy looks stable. it looks like a great time to sell or buy. And it's very simple.
Show me that stack. Show me that stack.
Yeah, I mean, these are all different. All these
Look at that.
different.
Look how thick that is. I mean, he's been doing that. So there's a lot of people that started this thing. I remember I was making a big deal about it and brought Ruby in this thing. Some of the people stopped. They did 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 months, maybe even 6 months. Everybody stopped but you.
Well, Mark does it. Mark still does it.
Okay.
And I know, and he'll tell you. Mark Mitchell will tell you the same thing. When the majority of your business is going to come from that sphere of influence, so you're always building it. Now, if you're and here's the other thing though, if you have closings and 1 out of every 30 people that you close is not someone you would want to work with anymore, well, you don't have to include them. You just stick with the people that are the ones that are your clients that you want to work with. There's a lot of neat things about doing this and working your sphere of influence. And as you go along, and you end up just sending items to the people that are your clients that you actually enjoyed working with, it makes your whole business and your lifestyle a lot more enjoyable.
So the postcards are so great for that. We send postcards to the SOI. We also send them to the GTM. We'll talk about GTM in another, geographical target market area. But you can shape, you definitely show in a lot, and some of them, every postcard you have an objective. Every objective is different for each postcard. I'll state that right now. But some of them are just pure branding. You've got to let them know. If they don't know that you're winning awards, if they don't know you're selling a lot of houses, they're not going to know. It's your job. You are Coca-Cola. You're the branding department of your company. So you got to let them know that they're dealing with one of the best.
Well, one of the things that you don't want to do on your postcards, just as a side note, is never, ever, ever advertise any kind of commission specials, because people will never forget that, and you're going to be stuck having to fight that battle for the rest of your career. So
that'd be almost negative branding.
Right. Sometimes that is not a place to do that at all. Okay. So you have to use good common sense with your past clients, so you don't pigeonhole yourself.
So yeah, and I look at that picture. That's my vision, and that's your vision. You're looking at a landscape there, and those are all people that are your sphere of influence. Some of them are just people you met at a party one time, and you put them in your database and kept up with them. Some of them, it could even be an internet lead that you contact or whatever. Every way that you become a Met. And so these are all people that probably might use you. Studies say if you keep up with them like that, they're going to go with the first person they talk to. And then also they might refer you people.
And the other thing is you always want to be the second choice too. So if you have a sphere of influence and you've gotten along great with somebody, and let's just say that they have another person who's a real estate agent who happens to attend is on their baseball team or softball team or something, okay? And then they end up listing with them and it doesn't sell. Who do you think they're going to call?
Right.
So you have to realize that you always want to be you want to be the main person. But there have been many times where I wasn't the main person. I was the second person. It was the most.
Hey, Mike, your microphone. Did you cover up your microphone for a second?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. It's the second mouse that got the cheese in those cases.
Okay.
So that's another. I think that's important to remember.
I'll let you take these 3 things away. These 3 graphics.
Yeah. Well, it's a numbers game in the sense that if you build it, you will reap the rewards. So nobody starts a business and gets into real estate or any type of business for that matter, and has their feet on the ground and are running. You have to build your business, and that's why it's so important to develop that sphere of influence. The numbers you get in that sphere of influence, if you got 1,000 people in your sphere of influence in 1 year, okay, or in 6 months, I know that sounds crazy, but it can be done. I can't imagine you not being successful. Hold the vision, trust the process. Okay, this is huge. There's one of the things that I saw with people that were new when I worked with a lot more new people was I saw some people that were able to, that were understood that it takes time, that Rome isn't built in one day, okay? So they hung in there. Maybe they were in there for 4 or 5 months, didn't have a closing, and then all of a sudden, bang, okay, it happened. If you trust the process, you remember when you start in this business, there's some agents that are lucky, and it's luck. If you walk into this business and in the first month you have 2 sales and you make $35,000, don't expect that for the rest of your career. Okay, there's some people that happens to, and they're out of business within a year because it spoiled them, because they didn't realize that it's about what we're saying here is really what the secret sauce is, and that is building your database, building your CRM. Patience is a virtue. Ooh, that's so important. Again, it takes time to build something up. It takes time to build a business. So like Stephen was saying, if somebody is going to be in real estate full time, the best thing they can do is realize that for the first 6 months, it is a learning process. And that's the time when you build that database. And then after that 6 months is up, after you've learned and you've got that database in place, okay, that's when you're going to start seeing the closings, the clients and the closings. And you better hope it's not the spring, because you might get overwhelmed. You might end up with so many clients that you might have to grab somebody else and say, hey, I need you to help me with this. So just be ready for that.
Okay, so I always say that this is kind of the culture of the sphere of influence. Your soil is the CRM. These names and numbers, now the names and numbers could be people you really know well, or they could be people that you don't know at all. You're trying to, obviously the objective is to call the leads and seeds. Again, leads could be somebody you don't even know, or they could be your best friend, but you're still planning them in your CRM. Nevertheless, the objective is to make them to be known better. You know, that's kind of the whole branding thing.
To grow them.
Yeah, you're trying to, you put them in, so you got to first have a CRM, a good one that you use, which is the soil. And then you got to put these seeds, which are leads, or, you know, I think I call them prospects once they're really ready to go, you know, that they're saying, I'm going to be buying sometime down in the near future, but they're all leads, and, you know, until that point. So the next thing, Mike, is, you know, drip campaigns. You can have some automated stuff if you want. You don't have to have automated. Quite honestly, sometimes I think automation's somewhat overblown, but it's good to have. I mean, shoot, if you just say, I'm going to push the button once a month, how hard is that, really?
Well, there's high tech, there's low tech, and then there's high touch, right? And the high touch is where you're high tech, but you're still touching people. You're still following up with them, having conversations with them, and you have technology backing you up.
But one way or the other, you got to be taking those seeds, and they've got the objective is to become. Remember, it doesn't matter what you know; it's who knows you and how they know you. So they got to know you. They want to be your face. By the way, is your logo. I mean, you can have a secondary logo. That's fine, but your face and name, kind of as they're all together, your face and name, that is your logo. So first, you want to be top of mind and known for being in real estate. But then you want to take it the next step. You want to be known as being successful. You want to be known for integrity. All of these, you can write about 10 adjectives that you want them to feel about you.
You have to be very careful in this business of how you treat people, no matter what part of the process you're in. because people nowadays can go on websites like Zillow and bash you. So you have to really, you know, even if someone's unfair to you, if they're rude to you, you still have to be composed, and you have to treat them with respect. And I know that can be hard to do, but you have to pay attention to that, because all it takes is 1 or 2 times where you get a bad review, and it can really damage your career.
And like social media is so big, some people get on and, you know, they're on their one side of politics or the other, and
Man.
they're just going to town. I mean, look, you know, I'm not saying politics aren't important, but your career is important too. It's almost like you got to choose one or the other. Do you want to just be a political machine, or do you want to get along with everybody? Because our country's 50-50 on that right now. So,
Well, here's my question. Does it make you any money being a political machine?
if
I
it
don't
does,
think
then
so.
do that. Yeah.
So, I
The
mean,
other thing
you're trying
is,
to build a career, so.
it's hard to say when we're talking about how we want them to feel about you. That's like I said, there's like 10 things we could say with that. Like, do you want them to be, they want a classy agent as well. They want a person that has class, that's dignified, sophisticated, you know, that's professional. You can't be doing crazy stuff on your social media, even though that might be it may be harmless. But you know, you may be the greatest agent in the world and change, but they will bring that you're branding yourself as something that they may not really, they maybe have a hard time realizing you can put your suit on and be 100% professional, but still do this, you know, in your spare time.
You have to be positive. If you don't have something positive to say, you don't say anything.
And don't be controversial, even though it may be fun. It's, you know.
That's for when you're with your friends and family and that sort of thing, and then you can be a little more opinionated, get away with it. But you know, we're
You lose
talking
some
about
freedom. You lose freedom, Mike, when you become an agent, because now anytime you're a business owner, you lose freedom, I think.
well, you know, part of me does not want to offend people, and politics and that sort of thing are so emotional that if you say the wrong, that you like someone they hate, it offends them. So I mean, so why even taking a stance at all? You just especially on social media or anything I'm talking about, I don't see it doing any good for your business.
So we got the names. We got, you know, it helps if you can drip campaign it, but if you don't, just time block your emails and your, not just emails, your postcards, your emails. So get as much automated as you can, but if not, then that's not a big deal. But you do have to be communicating. I usually think of the fertilizer as more proactive stuff, and the most proactive stuff is picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, how are you doing?"
Well, yeah, that's right. And I think that the second most proactive thing is sending out the postcards,
I agree with you. I love.
because then you can actually have pictures of yourself, pictures of homes you've sold, pictures, you know, they want to know what you're doing. And if you show an image of being successful, who are they, you know, not only were they happy with you before, who are they definitely going to call in the future? So there are a lot of different reasons to do. I happen to think when someone sees a big postcard, they pull it out of their mailbox, that's going to be more looked at than some email you send out that looks like it came from a spam. And frankly, I think that email campaigns look a little bit spam.
Yep. So that's, if you do all these things, interact with them, keep in touch. This is what your career will look like, and year after year, you'll have the big harvest, which in reality is money.
Well, and then you got to realize how you handle success. I mean, are you going to be someone who's not going to be, all of a sudden you're going to be a snob, or are you going to be somebody that is respectful to other people and appreciate what people have done for you? I mean, you got, you know, it's how you handle yourself after you're successful kind of helps, it makes a big determination on how successful you'll be in the future.
Exactly. That's
why virtual property, so humble company. Steve Wagner, most successful guy I know, but he's very humble.
Well,
you know?
I was thinking that's you, Mike. I feel the same way. So,
well, no, it's true. I mean, that's remember we had that seminar, we had a luncheon, and that's what people said. So I mean, nobody likes arrogant, cocky people, and people can spot someone who's fake a mile away.
No doubt. And Mike uses KV Core, and that's kind of what KV Core looks like. It's desktop,
that's awesome,
laptop, notebook, yep. iPad, and a phone.
We've got the number of people using it is just growing too. It's a terrific program, really is.
So that's the basics, we're talking again, sphere of influence, getting to very basic, talk to people. You don't always, you don't let them know right off the bat. I think generally you talk about other people, you ask them about them, and almost, I'm talking about when you're breaking ice with a new person. If you go, hey, tell me about what do you do? That's awesome. And, most of the time you wait around, they'll say, what do you do? Well, I'm glad you asked that. I'm in real estate,
That's right. Or you could go out to the grocery store and say, hey, check out this is my cucumber. Where's your cucumber? By the way, I'm in real. No, I was kidding.
So when you're dealing with SOI, you kind of have two main business objectives. You want them to use you, and then you want them to refer you business. I mean, that's the reason you put them in the database, send them postcards, interact with them, etc.
But you don't call them up if they're not referring you business and chew them out. That doesn't work. That you don't call people and have some if they're not, you treat people with respect no matter what.
Well, here's the thing I found, Mike, and some people can't help it. It's a personality. Some people's personalities are they always want to match you. Those types. I got to match you. I got to match my. They're always thinking about me. Some people. I mean, I have a family member. I won't mention who they are. Never referred me anybody in the history of mankind. I mean, I always found out that their neighbor, their best friend, and I'm like, did you even think about? Oh, I forgot. I'm like, I mean, they know I'm in real estate. It's just not their personality. So yeah, you can't take it personally with some people.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes I know you don't want to be pushy salesperson, but if you don't get, you don't ask. And the more times, you can ask tactfully without sounding like a pushy person, those things at the bottom.
It was the funniest thing was like with the Tom Hopkins script, one of his scripts was something like, the manager of my company, it's something like this, excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I'm a real estate agent. My name is Mike Beernink. I'm with Virtual Properties. It's nice to meet you. Listen, the manager of my company, and I'm a little uncomfortable with this, has asked me to go out and meet as many people as I can and give out my business card in case you have some real estate needs. So here's my business card. And what is your name? You do something, it has to be, if you do something that's a little unique, it's funny because he says upper management of my company. And it was, his is through a phone call, but I think you can make it, people actually almost feel sorry for you, and people that are sympathetic will do more for you. And I know that sounds funny, but it's especially if you're really uncomfortable. And some people are just so uncomfortable doing it that they might as well say, oh gosh, excuse me, I'm sorry to intrude, and then be really nice. I sometimes that works really well.
All right, I like it. So, again, we talked about time blocking. I think 1 to 3 hour, 3 would be maybe too long. 1 might be border on being too short because that one hour will fly. Go ahead, Mike.
And Steve, during that time, you have to have your time. Sorry for interrupting. You have to.
No, you're the expert on this. So.
You have to have the time for making the calls, and the time for putting those new leads into your database. So if you're gonna do 1 hour, you call for 45 minutes, and then you add the new prospects into your CRM for 15 minutes, okay? If you get new people. Otherwise, and the first thing you do whenever you're prospecting, first you go to your CRM and make all those calls, okay? Then after you're done doing that, that's when you come up and that's when you can call buy owners or expires or cold call or whatever you want to do. And then you add those new prospects into your database. And let's talk about buy owners for just 1 second. The way to get for sale by owners, and everybody knows it, okay, is you got to be the one that follows up with them the most and that makes a good impression on them. And by following up with them, I think you are making a good impression.
Yeah, so in all these, the KV cores and the syncs, that they have filters and labels, drip campaign. These are just terminology. But the one thing I want to say is if you have a good CRM, A, B, you know how to use it, you shouldn't be confused and overwhelmed by a volume of names and numbers. If you are confused and overwhelmed, you either A, have the wrong CRM, or B, you don't know how to use a CRM, or maybe C, you made both those, but you just haven't made yourself that comfortable with it. Once you get comfortable with it, it's just like driving a car. The car's very complicated, a lot of stuff, but after a while, you just kind of you just turn the ignition, you're driving. That's what you have to get with a good CRM, so you could have at least 1,000 names in there and be able to know how to work it and not feel overwhelmed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to make it so that if you don't, that you don't feel like you've done anything if you don't work every day. You need to do what's in your CRM every single day, and if you don't do it, then you feel so lousy about not doing it that it's something you have to do. So
well, both Sync and KV Core have systems for using filters and sorts, so you know exactly who you need to be calling every day. But you need, each CI, I can't really get in it. We'll have, you and I are going to do a session just on KV Core down the road, and we're going to dive into KV Core.
Awesome. Yeah.
But they could be using any CRM. You just got to have a system. Okay, this is who I'm going to call, and it's going to be using filtering, which filter basically means all the other leads, contacts, leads, whatever you want to call them, disappear except for these. And then I'm going to sort them in this order, usually like sorting the last time I've talked with them,
Now, it's interesting that, how some people like to have partners in this business, teams, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Partners that I think work the best are if you have someone who absolutely hates calling people, match them with somebody who loves to make the calls. Let one person do all the management on the CRM and everything. Let the other person do all the outgoing work. Okay, where you meet people, That to me is the perfect partnership in real estate, because you are taking advantage of both people's talents.
So this is Sync. I know most of us most of us use KV Core. They're basically the same thing. I just have a screenshot of how you can click on filters, and again, that will cause other leads that you're not focusing on at that point to disappear. Every one of those columns you can sort by last touch, by their last login, by reminders, etc. But that's what a good CRM gets into, and then you can put all the information about the notes about every conversation you have. You can set reminders within that. I kind of feel like that there's two things that you should be focusing on. This is different opinion. Everybody's got different, but how knowledgeable do you think they are? Number one, maybe he's a totally unknown. I'm looking at the left-hand column. Number two is mostly unknown. Maybe you had a real brief conversation. Totally unknowns, you've never talked to them. You've never met them. You never talked to them. They don't know you from Adam. You don't know them. Number two, you've had one brief conversation. Three, you're hoping to convert them from a 1 to a 2, from a 2 to a 3. Threes are an acquaintance.
They
Number
know
four,
who you are, right?
yeah, they know you. They know of you. You know, as you keep branding them, putting that face and name and number, that then you really want to build, number four, a friendship, a mild friendship. It may be a business friendship. You know, it's like a stronger equation. Then number five, very strong awareness, and this is just awareness of you. You know, they're you know, and you could do if you work this process, Mike, you could have hundreds of people that view you as a you know, 4 or 5.
Yeah, and those are the people that you're going to end up working with.
Then you could have another column say, you know, the sold or committed level to you. And like you said, you're fine with somebody just saying, hey, I know you got so-and-so as your, and that's fine. They're a great person, a great agent. Just want to say, if for whatever, you know, that didn't, you know, they weren't available or did not work out, I just want to be your second agent. Okay. You know, I just wanted you to have a second one just in case, not trying to step in front of them, be disrespectful to them. I always think everybody needs you know, a second event. But anyways, so the soul committed level, you could say number one seems loyal elsewhere. Like you might know they've got a friend or in the family, they talk about a past agent, but never, I like what you say, never assume that you know, they're just going to use them, because they may not use them. Some, they may come into, they fall out with one another. The other person may move. They may get sick. They may get, you know, all that stuff.
Or they could be, they just don't think the person has a good business sense.
They could try them, like you said, the first time, and then, you know, it doesn't go well. You know, a lot of people, selling your house and buying a house are two of the most stressful things. It can go sideways. And look, this is a $500,000 asset. And friendship aside, this is big money. I need to get with somebody, you know, anyways. So sometimes you'll say committed, that needs a little work. You're not sure. It's 3. And someone that seems, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're devoted to me. Number 5 is the people that you know they're devoted. You just know it. Mm-hmm. And so these are things that you, like labels. I'm talking about labels. See that blue up there? Labels you might create. If you get a 5 and a 5, that's what we call a power advocate, you know, most likely.
That's right.
So those are some things you can play around with and put in the labels. You also want to have, you know, for every person you have in your database, some sort of a gauge as to when they might, you know, when they think, what their plan is to buy and or sell. What would it be? We talked about that first. What would it be when they did? I mean, when you're moving, you say in 24, 48 months, that's cool, or, you know, 7 years. I just want you to be educated and, you know, and so I'll just send you once every 6 months or once every year. You know, if it's not going to bother you, I can send it to you every quarter. I just don't want to be bothered. You might, you know.
The average internet lead that you get just on the internet, I believe they said it was 6 to 24 months out.
I believe that.
Standard lead. So it might be 1 out of 15 that are now to 4 months. Okay. But in average terms, it's going to be more like between 12 and 24 months probably. It'll be the second, third, and fourth columns here. Beyond 48 months, those are people that have probably lived in the house for 50 years and they ain't moving.
Once they get into that, you know, 1 year, 6 months to 1 year, I mean, you know, some people it's only within 6 months. Some people it's within 1 year. Depends on, that's when you really start to, you know, that's when you really got to stay on your toes and spend most of your time with those. The other ones, you're just trying to get an idea when they might be buying or selling and categorize that in your CRM so you kind of know that.
Yep. And if you're working with a buyer, remember, I really believe that if you can do that time blocking during the week and on the weekend, as an example, and getting those times blocked out for working with that person, and of course letting them know that if something pops up that's a brand new listing and they want to go see it quick, you can be flexible a little bit, because we have to be. I think it's going to do a lot more for helping you control your time.
So the ways to start adding those names, those seeds, as we had that, you remember that visual, the CRM being the soil, the seeds being leads, you know, and again, a lead could be your best friend or a family member, or it could be just you know, an internet lead that popped in or something. But you get the best way to get referrals from Sphere. That is statistically, there's nothing better than having a bunch of Sphere and staying in touch with them and doing a great job to where they're sending you referrals. The next best thing is live networking. You know, this time of year, Mike, wouldn't you agree with holidays? I mean, you have so many opportunities to add Sphere names. You should be able to add Sphere names in November and December just by going to all these events you're supposed to be going to.
You probably should be able to, between now and the end of the year, I would imagine you could probably put in another 100 people for sure.
Yeah, I think I was at a Peter Pasternak did a pretty good. He's the master live network. I really do believe he is. And he says when you go to these events, don't throw up on them. What do you mean by that's a funny term? But what he was basically saying is don't be a salesperson. That's what you said earlier on. Have a meaningful conversation with them. And all you're doing is trying to, you know, is to make really good contact. You're not trying to sell them anything, sound salesman. And get their information and then try to hook up with them on social media. He does this thing where he, this is an interesting concept he has, but he meets with 100 people face-to-face a month. And he basically asks them, hey, what are you trying to, what are some of the things you're trying to accomplish? You tell me he knows a lot of people, and that's what he does. He knows a lot of people. And most likely I can help you out with but not, you know, through maybe some advice, but usually through other people. Mike, what are you trying to accomplish? And what do you think you know, two things. What are your obstacles? And what do you think what are some things you would think you might need to achieve that? And you shut up and listen to them. And I thought it was a pretty good thing. So that was his take, and it really works well for him. But that, you know, so
100 people a month, man, that sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot of time.
Well, what he does is he's got a system. It's 10 to 15 minutes, and he lets them know, look, this is real important. I get to know people and try, but 10 to 15 minutes. And then he does it at a Dunkin' Donuts, and he just stays there all day long, and they just come one after the other, you know. But he prepares them for that. He really works. That's what I said. When I say he's one of the best networkers, I mean, he literally has thousands of people that he does that. But he's kind of developed a little bit of it's a strategy he's working. It's brilliant. I don't know how we would mimic that as real estate agents. But whenever you can get face to face with somebody, it's hard to beat that. And wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think what we do is we have we call it like seminars, home buying seminar, a one-on-one home buying seminar. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the way you get some people in, and just say and have a dedicated number, and then make the appointment at Dunkin' Donuts. Make it for a couple people a day. One of the agents from our office, Nidia, when I used to watch her work, when she was in the Duluth office, she had appointments every Saturday, back to back to back to back, consistently. It was very, very, and it is very, very impressive. And when you can actually see these people that are super high producers are all the same way. They all have their systems in place. And it's about making appointments. It's about meeting with people.
So you got live networking, events or social opportunities, and then we've got internet, and that's another way that you could do. There's so much stuff you can do with internet, with like groups, you know, that, you know, interests. If you were into photography or hiking or golf, figuring out a way to connect with people, and then slowly you connect with them on a human level, and then you bring business into it.
Agreed. And sometimes that happens naturally.
But one way or the other,
naturally.
And you can actually export from both LinkedIn and Facebook. You can start collecting names through that, and then you can export those names and email addresses and sometimes even phone numbers into your CRM.
Right here. If you use this device and you look at all the people you have in your iPhone, that's a great place to start too.
Absolutely. A lot of these CRMs will just take your whole Google database and boom, there you are. You have to do some weeding around that and cleaning it up, but there you go.
Yeah, because some of the, yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Then you've got internet leads that you can convert. You know, that's a beautiful thing. That if you, so that's the thing. That was the problem with internet leads. Everyone in the beginning, they used to say internet leads suck. They're terrible. But they viewed them in their mind like a referral. They were expecting a referral.
Instantaneous results. And that's, you know, the 6 to 24 months out is not instantaneous. And so who's going to get the business is the person that follows up the best, that has the systems in place and actually follows through.
Well, I remember you were saying the same thing that Tom Ferry was saying. Tom Ferry says it's like 45 to 50 for every time you have a good connection, you know, with a person that, you know, that has a snowball's chance and you know where that might be buying or selling. And if you're even referring, then you should get a sale for every 45 to 50 connections. So today, man, you and I did not have this in 1989 or even the big part. I didn't have these internet leads I could call, and that would end up, if I had a good connection, a conversation, that was part of my 45.
Well, what was interesting is when you talked about when you worked with your mom and how great she did at connecting with people from the beginning. I mean, you said whenever she talked to people, it was just magical. She would just capture the lead. And I think that's what your real goal is once you have the lead, because there's so many leads to get out there. Who's going to win them over? And how did she win them over? What do you think
Well, you know, you just brought that up, and I remembered what I like to, you know, and you and I talked about that if you list, you can have some weekends off. Well, my mom, I had a good bit of listings out there, and I did a good bit of marketing. So a lot of times on weekends, man, it was a steady flow of people asking about my listings. So she would just talk with them, and, you know, she would get in conversations with them, and they would actually most of the time ask her, hey, I like the way you sound. I watched her do it. Half the time she's cooking dinner or she's multitasking. That was me. I can't multitask. So they would ask her, and I'd see her in a weekend get 2 or 3 buyers just by fielding my calls and just by being a human being, you know, with them.
By being pleasant and listening. And I really believe that. And having a good disposition. When you pick up the phone, how do you sound? You got to sound like you want to pick up the phone.
Well, there's number 9. So that's number 9 is what you just brought up with my mom, sign and listing ad responses. Number 6 is open houses. Those are, if you're a new agent, man, you should go on many of these, but do the full throttle open house. Don't go there and read a book, you know, plan on it being. I did open houses, I have to admit, in the past, and I brought a book, and I got myself so much into that. I was just doing it to please the seller. I was hoping no buyer did come. It's crazy as that sounds.
I'll tell you, two open house. I did one open house. I've done them where I've had a nonstop stream of people and I connected with them. I had another open house I did when I first started in the business, and I was teaching school at the time, and I was so exhausted that I sat down on the couch. The door was locked, thank God, and I fell asleep. And 2 hours later, I woke up. And then because someone rang the doorbell, and I got up and I answered the door, but I literally fell asleep just sitting on the couch.
Well, we're going to do another session like this, and it's just going to be on how to do the Mac Daddy open house. We won't get into that now because we're already this has already probably been a long session as it is, but you know, so the name of the game of this SOI is, if people have not gotten it through our conversation, is taking what Mike and Tom Ferry were saying, like 45 to 50. You know, a lot of people, you tell them that, they go, I don't know who to call. Well, this is the process. The best calls you can do are sphere of influence, but you got to be adding names in there.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be any kind of fancy call. It can be, hi, how you doing?
That's it.
Just checking in to see if they had any questions about the real estate market. And,
What-
you know, we're going into an election year. Did you have any questions about how this would impact real estate? You know,
Do you do
just,
any door knocking, Mike?
if I had a little more time, I would. I think it's extremely effective. Obviously, Jeff Hanna is an absolute expert at it. Amazing. Okay. This guy knocks on 35 doors, and he gets, for every 35 doors, he ends up with a listing or something like that. I can't.
Exactly.
Was that the number? Was it like 35?
That's what he said, 30 to 35, and it's just, he says it's clockwork.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about Jeff is Jeff's such a nice guy. You know, he doesn't come across as arrogant, just a down to earth, super nice guy, and I think that's the key.
Just a good old guy. But what the title of this, if we forgot, these are ways to increase, to add more names to the database, because we're trying to figure out, hey, how do I keep adding names to my database? That's what you said at the beginning. And you also said in the beginning, there are two little piles. They're the ones that you know and that you've met, and the ones that you're going to know and going to meet. And you're trying to bring the ones going to know, going to meet into the known level, and then keep branding them and strengthening that. But these 10 things here, you know, people ask, well, how do I get all these names in the database? This is it. Referrals from other sphere, networking live, using social media, networking a hobby and interest on, like, some, you know, on usually internet or through live events and stuff like that. Internet leads, you can buy. Matter of fact, number 5 could be it. You know, if you're willing to buy enough leads, that will give all your goals could be met through any of those 1 through 5. Number 6, go ahead, Mike.
And I was going to say, if you want to be very cost effective on internet leads, I know one thing. I'm not exactly sure about Sync, but I know in KV Core, you can spend a small amount of money and get leads in a geographic targeted area. Okay.
Right.
Whereas there was another certain website out there that people were spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on. Okay. So sometimes if you want to save money and it's how you nurture the lead. It's not where the lead came from necessarily.
So door knocking, just cold calls. And I would say if you're going to do cold calls, you do it in your geographical target market area. We'll do another training session on that geographical target market area.
Eva, did you ever, you did Jackson Township, I think. Did you ever cold call that whole neighborhood?
I probably did. I know I postcarded them. That was a geographical, but you know, Floyd Wickman had us doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's one, you know.
That's right.
I mean, they had me calling. I think they started off with just pure cold calling, and then they gave you easier assignments from that point forward.
I remember.
But you know, it's a numbers game, and if you make like, you know, maybe every 20 calls, somebody will be a little bit nice to you. In my mind, if they're a little bit nice to you, you have somebody that, you know, it may not be like, hey, come list my house, but hey, call me back in in about a year or so. To me, I just have
database.
There you go. And so every time you're doing is one of the things I really love talking to Mike is a lot of times after you did, when I used to be out of that office a lot more, you'd come down and you go, oh, I just got done calling for an hour and a half. I go, how'd it go? You go, well, I got one appointment, but I got 3 people that I think are going to be good. I'll end up getting them eventually. And that was good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, it's the 3 people it's those people you follow up with over and over and over. Again, they get to know you. The trust is built up. They're going to be easier to work with. They're going to pay you more money. They're going to give you the amount of time you need to get the house sold.
So we talk about,
they'll also listen to you when you price it.
Right. Oh, yeah. The working people, you know, rather than these for sale by owners, getting them under these circumstances, being that 75% of the sellers that talk to the first person, being that first person, it's, you know, rather than the 25% that are running you through the ringer.
Yeah, and I think that with the for sale by owners, that's a whole different category.
Yeah, we'll have to do a full training session on that.
But I think if somebody really focused on just those, they could do great. And but I think that you would have to be extremely systematized, and you have to really differentiate yourself. Really, photography ain't gonna cut it, man, because they expect great photography from everybody.
Well, we'll cross that bridge later. We talked about number 9. That's what my mom got all her business, mostly the buyer business, is from there. And then call to action. So ad responses, there's certain like postcards or ads anywhere that you have to have some kind of real call to action, a powerful one, and the phone will ring sometimes.
Yep. You know, it's kind of neat sitting where I am, because I get to listen to Billy Rivas across the hall, and you know, when Billy answers the phone, there's such enthusiasm in his voice and such a positive attitude.
That's true.
That people people want to call him, and I think that is a great role model for all of us. Is you got to listen to him and the way he handles people.
Well, I do listen to even my own employees, and they all answer the phone differently.
Yeah.
And we even had to have a meeting on that. But you're right about Billy. He does answer the phone with enthusiasm, and he mentions the company, and he seems like he wants to talk to you. While some of them, hello, and I'm like, hello, what do you mean hello? You know, are you? Did I make a wrong call? Are you a virtual properties? They're good people and everything. I'm not going to name names, but some of them have had to kind of get in there. So with discovering ideas of this is, you know, I call it a racking your brain session. When you first start with SOI, you got to have this racking, and racking the brain never ends. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, you need to have one by yourself, and then maybe you bring your spouse or a significant other, maybe even your kids, and say, hey, help me think of names. Right at first, you just want names, you know, and then you track down the content.
I like your first one there, man. If you mess up on that first one in the upper left corner, I think you're in trouble.
Well, you start there, but then you start thinking, you know, this is design parents. All right, who are my parents?
Yeah, you know, family. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, all that does. Now, one of the things that is like church members, I always thought, you know, it's a little uncomfortable. But the key is that you start with the people that know you the best at the church, and you know they're your immediate sphere. You have a sphere of influence within the church, and then you do a good job for them. They tell other people, and that's the way your name gets tossed around through the people at your church. So I know some people feel a little uncomfortable about that.
Well, people can screenshot this. This is what we call a mastermind, brain racking. You do it with yourself first and try to write down names. Don't try to, write down as many names. These are jogging your memory. And then you go to some of your most important people, and they basically, like your spouse and maybe your kids, and say, all right, tell me a name that comes to mind. And hopefully you can come up with 100, 200 people just by kind of going through this list.
Steve, what you're telling me makes it's a lot easier than the route that I was saying. If you can come up with 200 people right off the jump, okay, and then you do 5 people, you do 5 people a day for 3 months, okay, you're going to have your 500 people right there.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I say there's no excuses. You think about it with all the communication tools and Google, and I didn't have this stuff, man. It was hard back in the old days before the internet and all that,
we carried around tablets, and I carried around note cards.
But I could come up with the names, but trying to find their addresses and phone numbers, that was hard. Now it's not hard with all the the information we have, we can track all these people down, load pictures of them. Man, this is today. But you know what? Nobody does what we're talking about. When I say nobody, 90+% of the people don't do anything close to what we're talking about.
Well, and it makes perfect sense to do what we're talking about, because if you want to have more clients, you want to have easier clients, you want to make more income per closing. Okay, these are all things you can do. When people know you, they're going to give you less of a hard time. They're going to listen to your advice more. They're willing to pay you what you're worth.
Now, that pad, I think the pad is still useful unless you're real handy with your iPhone or whatever your phone is. I still think carrying around, if you're a real estate agent, anytime you have a network, you need to have your business cards, and then you need to get as much of that information as possible. I don't think you're asking people at that time for their birth date and things like that, but their name, phone number, an email address. And then try to, if you can remember their spouse and some of their family members. But nowadays we can track all this information down. Ultimately we do want all this stuff in their CRM entry, right?
You do, and that's one thing I don't do is I just do a general follow-up, but I don't dial them up on their birthday or their anniversary or their kid's birthday, or and I could do even better by doing that. I really could.
Well, what you're doing works, Mike. So I'll leave it at that. And there's a reason why of the 3,200 agents, I'm calling Mike up, because what he does works. But stats say that people, it's not just their birthday, but their wife and their kids' birthdays. That really goes a long way to winning them over time.
Even their dogs.
Yeah. I know everything you can do to connect with things that are important to them. You show that it's important to you, and you'll win people over. Because you said this, that people, this is a core thing. People they usually go with who they know and trust.
Who they trust, exactly.
And they trust, on a personal level and a professional level, we should say. So
every time you contact somebody in your database, I think you're building more, you're raising them up just a little bit on the trust scale. So you want to get them way up here. And by the time if you can get them up here at the time that they're ready to buy or sell, then they already trust you. It'll be a lot easier.
This is another, I saw you did take the thing to screenshot. This is just another list of people to go down. It's more alphabetical than the other one was.
Excellent.
More. But those are some of the ones I highlighted there: accountant, apartments, athletics, beauty salon. Now, the one Chamber of Commerce, when I first got into real estate in 1989, that was my source, is the Chamber of Commerce used to have lists, and they probably still do. This was the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, downtown. I drove downtown Atlanta right next to the Omni, and that was their Chamber of Commerce. I could almost walk to that Omni around there. And I got and every month I got a new list of all the people that said they're coming to Atlanta. They would ask for a relocation package, and you find there's a lot of people that have these lists. By the way, I think some banks have the list. So I could buy this list. Now I had a strong thing, to tell them, because I was one of the first buyer agents around. And that got their attention, when everybody else, so, but my point of the matter is that there are probably these lists out there, and I've not, most of the chambers of commerce would have these lists of people relocating. And so.
That makes sense.
Okay, this is
great stuff, man. Awesome.
So top 10 ways to add quality, because the other one we were adding quantity, numbers, seeds into the, but this is how you add quality. Number one, nothing replaces the phone. Visits or meetups, like I know somebody that that does meets them for coffees, always having coffee meetings or little this or that meetings. But you can do this on a big client party. You can do it one-on-one, like there's the SOI events.
There's the person that rents out the theater and then invites everybody and serves some popcorn. You've heard of that.
I've heard of a few people doing that. Not too many people I know. I don't know anybody our company does, but I've ran into a few people that say they do it, and this is big teams and stuff. You know, the Jamie Mertz used to do that. They used to have a big pool party for their people.
Wow.
And, you know, the kids and all that stuff, and apparently you get tons of referrals at that. You know, you get tons of referrals when you do that. They just flow in. There's your postcards and mailers. I'm just going down there. Got to be careful with the gifts, but, you know, bringing them like 4th of July, a little flag, and say, hey, I just brought you this flag, or here's a little pumpkin. That's you know, it's hard for people to get mad at you when you're bringing them a gift. But if you can connect with them face to face, these are sphere of influence.
That's right.
You're winning them over. And do you not think that you branded your face and name when you brought them a little $2 or $3 gift, and you literally don't ask them at that point? The best thing to do is not look like it's an ulterior motive, like, oh, here's a pumpkin. Oh, by the way, do you don't want to buy anxiety now? Yeah.
Then you're going to sound salesy.
That's what you said in the beginning, I think. All of these, if people, you know, if someone out there wants to do a kind of a screenshot, you use all these to kind of build the quality.
One thing
these
about KV Core is that directly from KV Core, you can send text messages
or
emails directly from the site. All you have to do is type them in. And you can have campaigns where you actually have certain people that are of a certain criteria. For example, high-end seller Peachtree Corners, right? Those are 500 and up, Peachtree Corners area. And you can actually take and whittle your list down to those people and send them all a mass text that has something to do with Peachtree Corners, has something to do with the schools, has something to do with property values on the high-end homes, etc. So those are some more reasons to consider something like KV Core or Sync.
And what you just said is very valuable, sending people things of value. You know, you want to, you know, it's not just sending an email, it's sending something of value. And when you do that, you know, so we said we had 10 ways to increase the quantity. Now here's 10 ways to increase the quality, because that's it. You're trying to add a quantity of names, and you're trying to brand them over and get them more sold on you, more known.
Right.
The AdWorks things is kind of technology is kind of interesting. There's two different ones. You can load in all your emails into AdWorks, and then, you know, this is like when they're just searching on the internet, and you know some of the websites have little ad blocks, and that's what AdWorks does. It goes to all these internet sites where people are going, these little ad blocks, but all of a sudden they'll see a picture of Mike Beernink and his name, and you can't say a whole lot. It's not for a call to action generally. It is for branding. And so there's two ways that works. It's from loading the emails on there. And I think it's like about $250 for 1,000 names. Think about that, $250 a month for 1,000 names. And they're going to do a certain amount of exposures to them. The second way, Mike, is that if they come to, there's certain type of retargeting if they come to certain, either your website or other websites that you designate. So it's something to look at there. But I think those are 10 ways. We could list another 10 ways. But that's the objective, is to add quantity, then quality. Okay, this is it. Choose your CRM.
Yep.
Make your initial, that brain racking session. Develop a plan for adding the quantity. That's the when and the how. Develop a plan for.
When you will work to add names. That's your prospecting time right there.
Then step 2 is the quality, the nurturing or the branding, whatever you want to call it. Then you're just trying to, you know, brand yourself and make sure you don't miss them.
I love it, man. You got to be patient on this. You got to let the process work.
So I know step one is what you're saying, be natural and sincere. Call and have a conversation like an interested friend, talk family, friends. And eventually, if you feel like it works, then ask them those questions if you know anyone might be buying or selling there in the future.
I think those are excellent questions. You want to have that script written out. You want to create your own script,
Right.
in my opinion. Okay, and you want to practice it until it sounds very natural, and it is natural.
And what you said is right, because if they do a lot of calling, they do these time block and they call 50 to 100 people or whatever, you can do an hour and a half. If you just do it regularly, it's going to be natural.
I agree.
At first, it won't be. Tip for Facebook, create a separate SOI list for your Facebook friends who are extra active in the community. You can do stuff so there's stuff you can do, take a screenshot of this, we won't get into it, but Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. There's a few little techniques there for people want to kind of screenshot that. Might be helpful. There are 3 expectations. Again, since I did the PowerPoint here, I'm just looking for you to talk around it, Mike. But for every,
it says this is really good. I mean, everything you're saying is a numbers game, and I imagine the A or B names would be people that are more ready, willing, and able to go right now, and B names are a little bit down the road, that sort of thing.
Well, I say the A's and B's are kind of more the branded level on how they know you, and so
okay.
Versus C, this is kind of more. The A, B names are more how they know you versus don't know you at all. C and D is not the quality of the lead, but how they know you. So, but every person that's kind of somebody you've talked to a little bit. For every 40, 50, you should make a sale from their business. You would think so if 1 in 10 are moving on average, that you should make a sale, at least one sale for one every 40 or 50. That may be a weak estimate.
What if somebody were to make 300 dials a day and 50 contacts? Okay, yeah. And you do that on number 1. You would be doing 4 sales a month, 50 closings a year.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Based on that, and based on your math, I mean that's very powerful. But the problem is, it really takes discipline to sit down and do that. It really takes discipline. You have to be passionate about. Okay, every time you make that phone get dialed, you're getting closer and closer.
So I mean, expectation 1 is really pure SOI. It's just kind of working on. That's not calling them one. The next one, we'll get the expectation 2 is that, but having those 40, 50 in your database, that's what right. Expectation 1. It's just having them in your database and working your plan. That's not saying they're just sitting in your database. It doesn't mean you have to call them every week or every day. It could be twice a year, as you said. But if you have worked these guys to an A or a B, for every 40 or 50 you have, and the whole point is to build your database and get them to the A and B. You should get a sale from them. Now, what I don't have on here is you should also get one more sale from referrals from them. Mm-hmm. So in essence, if you have for every 40 or 50 you have in your SOI, this is pure SOI, you should make 2 sales, one off of their business, one off of a referral. That's what I think. And that's not what I think. That's what the stats kind of say, that you should. Keyword is also at least. The second expectation, I think you and I have talked about this, I'm preaching to the choir, is that just forget SOI, for 40 or 50 times you can connect with somebody, you should ultimately work itself out to at least 1 sale, if not 2 sales.
So that if somebody was brand new to Atlanta and they'd never lived here and they don't know anybody, okay, but if they do expectation number 2, and they in 6 months they want to do it over the phone, so they
Yeah.
get Haynes crisscross and call like crazy, and they get a hold of people, and all these people say, yeah, you can follow up with me in a couple months to check in. So you're adding all these people to your database.
It may not work number 2, Mike. It may not work for number 2. The numbers may not be quite, because that's technically a pure cold call. There's a qualifying thing that you have to have some reason to believe they may be buying or selling now or in the near future.
Well, one of the things that you can do is you should always call around your sales, okay, and follow up and see if somebody, let them know, hey, I just sold the home over on such and such street, and as a result of my advertising, I think I kind of have a surplus of prospective buyers. Now, I was just wondering if you thought about selling, something like that. And it's you're gonna get somebody that's gonna invite you over, I believe.
We could say another expectation is what we've been saying. That same dialogue you just said, door knocking. Probably that would work for the 4, but you actually have to talk to somebody. It's just not every time you knock on the door. You actually have to talk to somebody. Mm-hmm. And then for the internet leads, about 40 to 50 for every 40, 15 minutes, you call within the first 30 minutes and attempt at least 6 times. If you work that process, you should make at least 1 sale for every number. These are just expectations for numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I just have some stats here. I won't get into all this stuff, but then that's what we've said. No easy path and everything like that. This is one, I read this online, Mike, and this is not hard. This is for Sphere of Influence. It's a group out, I think we're out west, but they, at 15th every month, they sent a postcard to everybody. On the 7th every month, they sent a short email video. On every 21st every month, they sent a different email. Not the video, just a regular email, probably a letter type of email or something. And then once a quarter, they would call them.
Wow.
They started off with 279 contacts, and what was it? What was the amount of volume they did? Went from 0 to 90 million in sales volume in 4 years by working this plan.
God, that's amazing. Wow.
Well, that's it. Anything else you want to say, Mike?
No, man. I think it was great. I think you've given people a massive opportunity to. This is not a hard system to follow. You've got the CRMs in place, and it's just a matter of doing it. The problem with a lot of real estate agents is that there's always tomorrow, right?
Right.
Procrastination. You have to say, no, I'm done with that. I am going to do this, and you have to schedule that time, and you've got to get those names in your database, names and numbers. I think if you want to make $100,000 a year, I think you have to have 500 people that are in your database that you are consistently following up with, and that's every month. You do that, and when I say follow up, I'm saying send a postcard, make a call, whatever. You do that, and I really believe you will make $100,000, no problem. And it's just getting those people in there is going to take a little bit of time, and then doing the follow up is going to take some discipline.
Well, that's it. Mike, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think that, somebody that watches this should know more about what sphere of influence is. I think we've talked all around it, and then it's just a matter of getting it going.
Steve, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate
you. See you.
Bye-bye.